I'm Jeanne Luna.
And I'm Stephen Luna.
And we own Luna Botanicals. We do all types of botanical design, from landscape architecture to custom biophilic art.
And we call ourselves a landscape architect and biophilic design firm. So we do everything from inside to outside. And we even started kind of getting into biophilic signage, and we call it botanical branding. So I have a background in horticulture. Since I've been in high school, I've worked at a nursery. And then when I went to college, I went for landscape architecture, and that's what I graduated in. And now I'm a licensed landscape architect and a licensed horticulturist.
Then I went to the University of Louisiana at Lafayette, and they have a huge swamp in the middle. So I would go there every day and kind of stare at the Spanish moss and the alligators and the way things grew. So even in business school, I was very attracted to nature. And from there, we just sold at an art market that sold out. Just small things like terrariums and Kokedama. And when we sold out so quickly, we realized there's really something here. So we just kept building and building and doing different types of plantings. And that kind of led us to where we are now. Today, we're going to be teaching you Kokedama.
So Kokedama is a Japanese way to bonsai something. It's called the poor man's bonsai, and it's called that because you don't need the expensive pot to hold your plant in. This kind of application spreads much further than just trees or bonsai trees. You can Kokedama almost anything. Today we're going to Kokedama a houseplant.
And what we love about Kokedama is it speaks to a Japanese mindset or term, wabi-sabi. And that means appreciating the beauty in imperfection. So a lot of the times with the Kokedama, it'll hang slightly crooked, or things about the ball might not be completely perfect, or you can work until it's perfect.
Okay, so here we are to create your Kokedama. Like I said before, we're using a common household plant. This one's pretty easy to care for. Even in this pot, you can water it about once a week and it'll survive. Pretty easy to care for. This is a Victoria bird's nest fern. It's got these kind of curly ends on the leaves, and it's really pretty. They grow out really big. So here we are, Kokedama. So all the things you're gonna need: plant, wet sphagnum moss, and then your mud, and then scissors and some string. So first I'll start, you always want to make sure that you start with wet sphagnum moss. So just always make sure that the sphagnum moss is nice and moist. And the sphagnum moss, when it's dry, is going to be really rigid and hard, but it is like a sponge, so it is going to take a lot of water to make it absorb all of it. But once you kind of get looking like that, then you got enough water in there. Okay, so you start with your plant. Always take it out the pot. Okay, let me just this side. And so here you have your plant. Now what you're going to want to do is Kokedama, like we said before, is an art of bonsai. So root pruning is going to be one of the biggest things that's going to happen here. That's how you're going to get this ball to be small. The end goal, the root ball will be probably about a third of this size. And what you're going to do for that is you're just going to kind of rip into it. This is not harming the plant. It will still survive after this. You don't have to be incredibly gentle with it. Just know to pick off the sides up at the top because you don't want that hard edge. Okay, so here we have it. This is your final root ball size. Not too big, not too small. Rip off a little more. From here, this is why you want to have your sphagnum moss wet. This is going to be really dry when you put it on there, and always when you plant a new plant or add a new plant to a garden, even in a pot, you put a new plant in your home, it's always good to water it the first time you get it. That way you're on that watering schedule. So having this sphagnum moss come into direct contact with this root ball is going to make the plant want to grow new roots faster, because you're already supplementing the water to the roots that I've just kind of torn off, and it's just going to make them spur new roots. So you just grab you know, as much as you can. You want to make sure you fill the whole root ball, so you want to have no dirt showing. And it doesn't have to be completely full the first time. Because what you're going to do is you're going to wrap the string around it to hold it in place. So for this, just put it down, lay your string down on the bottom, cross over, just tie a simple knot. So that's your starting point. And from there, you can see what has some bare root left and where I need to add sphagnum moss to. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna just put that sphagnum moss on there, and then I'm just gonna wrap it around. And this is where you're starting to form the ball for the very first time. So your layer here is gonna determine essentially what the outcome of your ball or your kokedama is gonna look like. Now this is where if you make it too big, too much sphagnum moss will make your moss ball at the end too big, or, you know, there's no right or wrong way to do this. So just kind of go at your flow with whatever size of this root ball you want it to make, as much sphagnum moss as you want to put on here. The more the better, the less the worse, because like I said before, this is a sponge and it's going to soak up all that water. So the more you have on here, I'm just going to add a little more down here. Let's see, a little more dirt. The more sphagnum moss you have on here, the more in turn is going to be sucked up by, the more water is going to be sucked up by this sphagnum moss, and it's going to keep your root ball wet for longer. So I'm just going to cut this off right here. No need to really tie it off because this is going to be just an inside layer. So here's what we're looking like after the sphagnum moss is wrapped around. I still have a little bit dangling, but it's not a big deal. All right, so we're moving on next. The next layer of kokedama is going to be the kokedama mud. And for that, we have our own special mix. We have crawfish mounds that we've harvested here in Louisiana and peat moss. So we're gonna do about 1 scoop to about every 2 to 3 of the peat moss. And this is where it gets pretty dirty. But you're just gonna wanna mix it in there like you would any kind of cake batter or cookies or anything like that. So make sure you get your hands all dirty. This is kind of what we're looking like right now. It is a very dirty part of it, but it's fun to say the least. All right. So with this mud, you're going to take it and you're just going to pat it around your ball. If you are able to find crawfish mounds, you could just grab them and let them dry out. And then when you're ready to kokedama, you just add water to it, and that's going to make that mixture very clay-like. And allow it to stick on here. The peat moss is also a moisture absorber, so it acts good in that sense. It's a good filler as well. It allows the plants to grow through it. Oh, losing a little bit here. This is where it can get a little difficult. As you can see, the mud's starting to fall off. If you start noticing that, you might have too much water could be one, too much crawfish mound could be another. Oh. So don't worry about that though. You'll just kind of work it on there and All right, so looks like I made it there. Quite dirty, but here's your Kokedama ball at this point. Now you have the sphagnum moss wrapped around the root ball and then our homemade Kokedama mud. So now to the final step of putting the sphagnum back on the outside. This is just added as a kind of a, not a decorative layer, but like the outside shield. So we have the sphagnum moss now, and we're placing it on there. It acts as the outside barrier for this. This will also absorb water like the inside does, so it acts as a beneficiary in that way. You can use many different types of moss. You can use live moss, but if you use live moss, you're going to have to wet it more often because that live moss is going to need a lot of water to survive. So what we're going to do is I just placed a little bit of sphagnum on here. I'm going to go ahead and just wrap a string around here so I have an anchor point, and then I can start wrapping it. I'm going to put some sphagnum on the bottom of the Kokedama. Set it down. And then just same as before, simple double knot. And at this point you can hold your Kokedama, maybe do an initial wrap around, just to kind of get everything there. All right, so you just keep adding it as you go, and then you just wrap around that new part you add on there. Don't be worried about any sphagnum moss falling off. You can always add it back. Just worry about finishing the end product and making sure that none of this dirt is showing. This doesn't have to be a super fast process. It can be very slow. You see I'm starting to shape the ball now. You can get that more circular shape as you go. There we go. Now I have the whole thing wrapped. We can just make sure that it's all tied down. The more you wrap it around and the more string you have on here, the more likely that this ball will stay together. If you don't wrap that much around, likelihood is that this ball could fall apart. You want to make sure your Kokedama stays together through everything. You can wrap it any kind of way you want in the end to show your string or have your string be as discreet as possible. All right. I'll leave a little string. And then what you're going to want to do is just go underneath some of these lines that you've already run and tie you another knot. And then after that point, your Kokedama is finished. Okay, let me get this through here. There you have it. Kokedama. Okay, so for maintaining this, what you're going to want to do is you submerge this whole root ball for about 20 minutes. You can do it once a week. It really depends on where it is in your house or outside. If it's inside, it's probably getting a lot of AC and heat during the winter. So you're going to want to see how fast it dries out. But soak it for 20 minutes once to twice per week in the winters, or if you're running it the AC in your house during the summer, it's kind of by AC vent, you might have to do 3 to 4 times per week. A good indicator is to hold your Kokedama ball, and right now it should be pretty wet. See, I have some water dripping out of the bottom. So now you know the weight of it when it is watered. So it'll have a completely different weight and be way lighter when it's dry. And that's something good to know. And besides that, here's a Kokedama bird's nest fern.